Our ability to react to adverse conditions is dependent on our ability to understand the current situation and our ability to identify cost-effective and low-risk solutions. As a Texas-based manufacturer of braking systems, our production is threatened as one of our key suppliers, Mexcast, is experiencing material supply and capacity issues. We have just a few weeks to find alternative supply as we use up existing stock. Supply is our number one priority and cost comes a close second, but in a world where adversity could be round the next corner, a cost-effective solution can make the difference between surviving and thriving as a business. We need insight, so we use aPriori to simulate many manufacturing scenarios within a few minutes instead of a few days. This gives us on-demand access to cost and manufacturing information to make informed decisions. As we assess the geopolitical factors for resupply of this brake rotor, we can also understand the expected costs in all the major manufacturing regions of the world. We make this assessment very quickly. The should cost for any component in any manufacturing zone has been calculated in aPriori by simulating the entire manufacturing process with minimal input. I can now start the process of resupply with a more strategic approach. First of all, how much should I be paying for my brake rotor at Mexcast today? I know what I am paying now, but that's old news. I need to understand how much it should cost, what processes and machines are required, and the cycle times, so I can start to shortlist potential suppliers. Making this assessment within a few minutes means I can also evaluate the same criteria for my other suppliers or other manufacturing regions. Here we quickly compare Mexcast with a local supplier, Texcast, and a typical Chinese supplier. In doing so, I can also adjust and understand the significance of order quantity, material costs, labour costs, etc. To future-proof myself, I can start to think about diversifying my supply strategy. When we do go to tender and negotiation, I will be in a strong negotiating position through access to a detailed cost breakdown from aPriori. Contracting at the right margin level is good for us and for our suppliers. Now that I have identified a potential supplier or supply zone, I can easily identify other components that are economically viable to move also. For each component manufactured at Mexcast, aPriori compares its current contract price with a Chinese supplier. Components here are strong contenders for resupply, whereas these ones would be more expensive. Components in the middle are cost neutral, but should be considered for resupply. I want to de-risk Mexcast supply and provide enough business for my new supplier to benefit from the economies of scale. I can then decide how much I order from each supplier and again use aPriori to negotiate mutually beneficial long-term agreements. During supplier discussions, I can easily represent the supplier's precise factory configuration to fine-tune the should cost. aPriori will identify the optimum manufacturing route and machines, but we can easily understand the impact of alternative routings, capacity, staffing levels, factory overheads, and indeed any of the parameters within our digital factory. I get real-time access to real cost while refining my digital twin of my chosen supplier. Now we have on-demand cost insight to support the myriad of decisions to be made as we react to adversity. Now that we have control of emerging situations, we can turn our attention to recovering as a business from any economic or social curveball. Other potential supply risks can be captured in a roll-up, ready for multiple scenario simulations. If we do this now, we have more time to plan a strategy that incorporates diverse supplies for individual components or assemblies. aPriori helps us strike that crucial balance between risk and cost, as each option can be analysed very quickly, varying order quantity, batch sizes and supplier. As part of the tender process, we can provide much greater insight into process, cycle time and capacity needs for potential suppliers as part of the bid package. Including a breakdown of the expected costs too will ensure we find the right kind of supplier quickly to reduce the workload on our sourcing teams. Providing greater clarity to potential suppliers will become increasingly important if we're using reverse auctions. To help us and our suppliers, we can look for opportunities in reducing material costs and risk. Using aPriori, we can quickly find our annual material usage. Here we have two grades of material that may be interchangeable in design. If the design and certification permits rationalization on these materials, we have stronger buying power through volume and we reduce our exposure to too many critical supply routes. Whilst a healthy supply chain is good for our business, we still want to pay fair market price so we can be profitable too. Growing market share during an economic downturn can be achieved in two ways. If we can't out-innovate our competitors, we must at least outprice them. By running hundreds or thousands of cost simulations with minimal input, aPriori can compare should cost with quoted or actual costs. The most lucrative negotiation opportunities can then be identified and prioritized. Complemented with aPriori's comprehensive cost breakdown, purchasing professionals can have a more informed discussion about fair price and can work with suppliers to find a mutually beneficial contract for supply. These more collaborative conversations are supported with aPriori identifying process routings that are optimal based on factory layout, staffing, shift patterns, order quantities, etc. aPriori can identify the most cost-effective solution for the supplier. Using the CAD model as the basis for the analysis, any design for manufacturability and supply studies can be conducted before the design is finalized. A sensitive global economy and changed ways of living and working appear to be the new status quo. Given that we already need to out-innovate and outprice our increasing number of competitors, we need to reinvent some of our approaches to design, manufacture and supply. Leading organizations are already doing this. They can find the needle in the haystack, the designs that are not optimized for manufacturability, the components that carry unnecessary cost. These companies are using real-time, at-elbow guidance during design to eliminate manufacturability issues. The components they design are easier to make, cheaper to purchase, and can be sourced from a broader range of suppliers, reducing the cost of goods sold and giving greater supply chain flexibility during any global disruption. They make cost a team sport in which R&D, product design, operation, supply chain and purchasing all rely on a single view of cost and manufacturability. They even include key suppliers as part of that collaboration to focus on cost and speed up time to first article. For some, the tendering process is no longer needed as the cost is already known. Key suppliers and OEMs then greatly speed up the new product introduction processes to mutual benefit in their highly competitive markets. The companies that are truly exploiting this new level of insight are using the flexibility and security of the cloud to operate remotely and globally. They also operate with greater levels of automation and cost insight to ensure that everyone is aware of opportunities to get better products to market at a better price and ahead of their competition.